Hello and welcome to another edition of Around the Valley, where the goal is always 6 seasons in a movie. I'm your host, Will Weir. Here's how the show works. We take several national and local sports topics and debate them for your viewing pleasure with our esteemed panel of guests. And at the end of the show, I will arbitrarily and for no particular reason award one of them with a victory and crown them the People's Champion. And they will be awarded 30 seconds of rant time. Now before we get going, let's take a second and meet our guests. To my right, we have one of the small owners of the Green Bay Packers, back for his second stint on Around the Valley. It's John Walsh.
Thanks for having me, Will.
And to his right, we have the bow tie king himself, the only man bold enough to challenge Bruce Bowen in a bow tie contest. We have Mr. Kevin Moore of the UMass hockey team.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you, guys. So while we get started here, let's go flashback to last weekend where the 76th annual Masters Golf Tournament of the PGA Tour took place. Several different things happened in this tournament that were of note. To begin with, Tiger Woods came in as the odds-on favorite, but completely fell apart, having one of his worst outings of the tournament. On Saturday, Phil Mickelson came in with a late Saturday surge to put himself in contention on Sunday, but couldn't quite get over the hump. Louis Oosthuizen, who finished in second place in the tournament, shot a double eagle on Sunday, only the fourth in tournament history, but ended up losing to the eventual champion, Bubba Watson, in a two-hole playoff. Now, Kevin, my question for you is, out of all these things from this weekend, is it Bubba Watson winning the tournament that you take away from it, or is it one of these other subplots?
Well, initially I thought it was going to be Oosthuizen's double eagle. As you're watching the tournament, you're like, wow, that's one of the shots of the last decade. And then Bubba Watson just stole the show in the playoff. Hits that unbelievable shot out of the woods and curves it. And, you know, when you hear Watson talk about it, he said it was an easy shot for him. I don't know how that's an easy shot for anybody, but it's Bubba Watson. He makes golf fun. Those are the type of shots that he's built his career on. And, you know, he's one of those guys that golf needs because he sort of takes the staunchy out of the golf. He makes things fun. So.
Yeah, for me it would be the Bubba Watson shot in the playoff, obviously, because that was basically the winning shot. I actually watched the Oosthuizen shot live, and for me, probably the second greatest shot I've seen live, because I actually saw that Tiger shot in '05, the chip in, and he ended up winning the Masters. So for that purpose, you have to put Tiger shot above it, but otherwise, Oosthuizen might be the greatest shot.
Now, you mentioned Tiger, John, and I mentioned it earlier. He had an extremely abysmal week. He was coming fresh off his first PGA Tour in many months. Now, what do you think this means for Tiger coming off of this tournament? Is he back to Tiger like everybody thought he might be after that last victory? Or was that just was going to be turned into just a blip on the screen for Tiger?
Well, I think the injuries have clearly caught up with him, set him back a bit, and I think the rest of the world has caught up with him as well, because everyone was picking Tiger, McIlroy, or the field, and McIlroy didn't really show up either. So I think everyone else is stepping up their game and catching up with Tiger, basically.
Yeah, I think you got to look at it from a psychological standpoint. Nobody's scared of Tiger anymore. You know, used to go into Sunday and guys would be looking over their shoulder, here comes Tiger, here comes the surge. It's not the case anymore. They're not scared of him. Guys are just going to go out and play their game and not worry about him anymore.
So out of the people that we've mentioned so far in this topic, between Tiger, Phil, Oosthuizen, and Bubba Watson, out of the four of them, which would you guys think has the best chance to win another Grand Slam event this year?
I think it's Oosthuizen. He won the 2010 Open Championship. He's runner-up in this Masters. I think he's the guy that you really look to.
Well, like you said, psychologically, it seems like that's a big part of Bubba Watson's game. He's very emotional after he won, and you know, maybe he can ride this win out to bring him to another victory later on in the year.
All right, well, quickly now, moving from the links to the ice, the NHL playoffs are upon us. And in this area, two teams are very much on the minds of the locals, the New York Rangers and the Boston Bruins. The New York Rangers, champions of the Atlantic Division and the #1 overall seed in the East, will play host to the Ottawa Senators, while the defending Stanley Cup champion Boston Bruins and winners of the Northeast Division will have the Washington Capitals come to town in a 2-7 matchup. Now, guys, something intriguing about this is that both lower seeds, the Senators and the Capitals respectively, won 3 out of 4 against each of these teams in the regular season. So my question is to you, which of these teams is more an upset alert, Kevin?
I think the Capitals are the upset alert. They were injured all year. They underachieved. Alex Ovechkin had 65 points, which was a career low when he's generally a 100-point scorer. And, you know, the Bruins still might have a cup hangover. They've been inconsistent this year. Horton's out for the duration of the playoffs with a concussion. You know, I think the Capitals are getting healthy at the right time. They have an unknown goalie in Braden Holtby, who was an AHL All-Star, but he's sort of their third goalie this year. But I think that's a good thing for them because there's no pressure on him. They're not expecting him to steal the show, much like Cam Ward when the Carolina Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup and he won a Conn Smythe. So I think that might be an advantage for them, having a goalie who really has nothing to lose.
I would go the other way. I'd say the Rangers need to be a little bit more nervous. The Bruins are playing well, right? Well, not well, but they're playing the third-string goalie against the Capitals. They're going to put Chara's just going to match minutes with Ovechkin, so that should hopefully shut him down. And they just got Peverley back, so they don't have Horton, but they're getting better on offense as well. With that being said, I don't think the Rangers really have much to worry about because they have, unless Alfredson and Spezza can really get it going, I don't think Lundqvist is going to have too much of a problem against the Senators.
Yeah, I think the Rangers, they have to be concerned about the Senators' power play. They were just outside the top 10 in the league in power play percentage. Carlson's one of the best offensive defensemen in the league. He moves the puck great, and Spezza and Mihalik had over 30 goals this year. So if the Rangers get into penalty trouble, it might be a long series for them, but I don't see them losing.
And while we're talking about these two teams, so important in the playoffs is defense and goaltending. And these two teams have two of the best goaltenders in the league, in Henrik Lundqvist and Tim Thomas. So what I want to know is, going into this playoffs, who do you feel more confident with? The goalie that's been the hottest all year in Lundqvist, or the goalie who won the Stanley Cup title last season?
I would go with Tim Thomas based on the whole team has plenty of playoff experience. So they know what the playoff series are going to be like. A ton of our series last year went to 7 games. So they know what the pressure's like. They know what playoff hockey's all about. So I would take Tim Thomas and the defending champions.
I like Lundqvist in this one. Goaltending in the playoffs about who is hot. Lundqvist has been hot all year. They did a good job giving him some rest with Marty Baron throughout the year, so he's not as logged as many minutes as he has in the past. And goaltending also is very much a team game, and the Rangers block the most shots in the league, and they play very defensively, sort of like those Devils teams that won the Cups in the 90s and the 2000s.
Okay, for those of you here in the Amherst area and in the Massachusetts area in general, the schedule has been set, and please remember that the Bruins will be starting this Thursday against the Capitals and playing once again on Saturday at 3:30 on NBC, so please tune in to the NHL playoffs. Now, sticking with hockey, we're going to move to the college ranks, where the Boston College Eagles have just wrapped up their 3rd national title in 5 years, establishing themselves firmly as a powerhouse in the NCAA hockey world. So, Kevin, I want to ask you, especially as a member of the UMass hockey team, a member of a team that has played BC several times in the past years, is this a dynasty?
It's absolutely a dynasty. I hate to say it. They've knocked us out of playoffs 3 years in a row, all sweeps. They're a dynasty. They have 22 players that are either on NHL teams, in their minor leagues, or in the organization or within the front office of NHL teams. 22 teams have represented with BC players. It's unbelievable for college hockey. This is sort of like the Miami, of college hockey. They're just producing good pros. Chris Kreider just signed with the Rangers. He might play in the playoffs. Brian Dumoulin signed with the Hurricanes. If they were in the playoffs, you could see him in there. I mean, it's ridiculous how much talent they bring to BC.
And John, I have a question for you. Is being in the Northeast, hockey players are produced mainly in the Northeast here. It's very big out here. UMass is a great hockey program. Northeastern, obviously BC, BU. So my question for you is, how does that affect the fans around here in this area? How do they gravitate? Or what's their take on the way college hockey is here in the Northeast?
Well, here up north in general, the professional sports are going to be bigger, but I think hockey specifically, especially college hockey, is where the college kids will get on board. I definitely have been to way more UMass hockey games than any other sport. Mm-hmm. And then the whole Hockey East is probably the best division in college hockey, so it's definitely huge up here in the Northeast.
Okay, and for both of you, do you think that college hockey at any point will ever have a chance to compete on the national level for attention that college basketball or college football does? And if it, I mean, obviously it isn't right now, but what can it do to get to that point?
It's already on its way. With the all these sort of ESPN News, CBS Sports, all that, they're signing deals now. In 2013, 2014, the National Collegiate Hockey Conference is going to be with CBS. Hockey East signed on with NBC Sports Network. They're getting these big deals, and now they just added a Big Ten hockey conference for the Big Ten network. So the exposure is there now, and it's just a matter of time before it blows up.
Yeah, I think definitely if they wanted to aim a place, it would be here in the Northeast because that's where college hockey is biggest. But in the South is where they're more into college and high school sports than they are professionally. So I don't know. I think it'll be tough for them to overtake professional sports.
Before I move on here, Kevin, I was wondering if you could give us a little preview of the UMass hockey team in the next couple of years and what your take is for the outlook on your team.
Well, the outlook's exciting. We did lose to BC in a sweep, but it's generally accepted. We kind of outplayed them. It's sort of sour grapes, but the future's bright. We have 20 juniors and sophomores next year on the team, and there's a lot of talent there. It's going to be what they have between the ears if they're going to be successful.
So keep that in mind, folks. Next year, when UMass takes on BC, it could be the year that UMass finally gets over that hump and takes down the national champions. Now we're going to switch back to the pro sports, and we're going to move to the beginning of the baseball season, where both the Red Sox and the Yankees have gotten off to very slow starts, each getting swept in their respective opening series by the Tampa Bay Rays and the Detroit Tigers. First, let's begin with the Red Sox. Clearly, the bullpen an issue. 2 blown saves in their first 3 games. Currently, they stand at a 1-5 mark and have not had many good outings from anyone in their rotation or from the bullpen. So, John, I want to start with you. How can this be correct? Is this an issue that Bobby V can kind of correct this early in the season?
Yeah, well, I think we've gone through the starting rotation once. I think it's a big overreaction, kind of. Obviously, Bailey getting hurt doesn't help the bullpen at all. But Detroit's a hot pick right now for the whole MLB as maybe an AL champion. So I'm not too concerned with the Red Sox right now. I think they have a lot of time to pick it up, but they do need to do something quick to win these fans back because with the collapse of last September, they're going to be on their case pretty early.
Yeah, I mean, it is April, so let's not get ahead of ourselves here. But I think the Yankees have a little bit to worry about because they have an older rotation. You look, when Pettit's ready to go, he's 37, Garcia's 35. They're older. Pineda's on the DL, and he's their young gun. So you wonder how much juice these old pitchers have left. If they put it together, then the Yankees are as good as anybody in baseball. But if they don't, it's going to be a long season in the AL East.
Yeah, I think the Red Sox started 1-9, 1-12 last year, and we put ourselves in. Obviously, we collapsed, but we put ourselves in tremendous position towards the end of the season. So I think it's a little bit early to be calling it a season.
Now, without a doubt, it's absolutely early in the season, and both of these teams are loaded with talent. But something of somewhat alarming concern on the Yankees side is that their $100 million men in the middle of their lineup, Alex Rodriguez and Mark Teixeira, so far it is early, only a week into the season, but no home runs, and they're batting a combined 154 average. I mean, that's simply not going to get it done, but especially where they're not these young pups anymore, is it kind of a concern that with age, especially with Alex Rodriguez, that it may be catching up to him finally?
Age is definitely a concern with the Yankees. I feel like the last few years, that's all you hear about is, the Yankees' window's closing, and somehow, they pull it together. And this just might be the year where it finally catches up to them, and they're going to have to try to rebuild through the farm system because the free agent pool the next few years isn't what it used to be, and they're not going to be able to buy the players.
Yeah, generally they just buy their way out of their age or fix their problems with money. But like you said, age is catching up with them, so that's the ultimate equalizer in sports.
So from going here on out, which of these teams do you see in a more favorable position come later in the season towards the All-Star break? And not to forget that the Tampa Bay Rays are in this division, who are going to be hanging around, and the Toronto Blue Jays look as though they potentially might be an up-and-coming team. Where do you see these teams ranking? Not even in the AL American League, but just in the American League East come All-Star time.
Come All-Star time, I think you'll see the Red Sox in first place. Their lineup's just too good. I know they collapsed a little last year, but people need to forget about that. It's a new season. Everybody was picking them as the trendy pick last year. I don't see why they're not doing it again this year.
Yeah, I think the Red Sox will eventually be fine. And then the Yankees are the Yankees, so I would never say that they wouldn't be first or second come All-Star break.
Do either of you guys expect, again, very early in the season, but being here in the midst of Red Sox Nation, the panic button is always just an inch away. Do you guys foresee any big moves being made by the Red Sox or Yankees, perhaps trying to make a move later on in the season?
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees are always in the mix come trade deadline. I think if the age is starting to catch up with them, they might somehow steal somebody like they did Granderson from the Tigers, somebody younger, and sort of retool that way and sort of prolong the inevitable.
Yeah, and as same with the Red Sox, if the bullpen stays the way it is, they're going to have to make a change sooner than later. See what happens when Bailey comes back, but if he keeps struggling, they're going to have to add to that bullpen.
All right, well, it'll be definitely interesting to keep tuned into as the Red Sox and Yankees continue their seasons. Once again, very early. Each team only been through the rotation once, so by no means is the season over yet, just quite yet. Switching to the hardwood now, we're going to go to the Boston Celtics, who are in the midst of an incredible hot streak in which they have also beaten the Miami Heat twice in their past 6 games and are 4-2 against 6 current playoff teams. Now, one of the biggest reasons for the Celtics' emergence, John, has been that they have moved Avery Bradley into the starting lineup and have moved Ray Allen to the bench. What are your thoughts on this move?
Yeah, well, it started, of course, when Ray was hurt, so it was necessary, and I think Doc should stick with it now. One of the major problems we had was going to our bench all season long. We had no scoring, no one that could put the ball in the basket, and so Ray Allen is the perfect player for a second unit. He'll run circles around the defense until he gets open, and then he can hit a shot with 7-footers in his face. So I think it's a perfect switch to make, especially with Bradley's defense on the first team that we'll be playing against.
Yeah, I'm surprised Doc actually made this move. I know I said last week they should make this move, but I didn't think he was going to.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's the right fit. It's not like Bradley's going to play more minutes than Allen. Allen's still going to get his, he played 35 minutes last night against the Heat. He's the guy who they need come big-time minutes, so why not give him some rest in the regular season?
Yeah, I've seen, even with the second unit, it gets Ray Allen more shots as well. Mm-hmm. I saw there was a span where we got 2 offensive rebounds. Ray Allen had 3 shots on one trip down the court. So I think that's perfect. The more shots he gets, the better. Greatest shooter of all time, so I have no problem with that change.
Absolutely, the all-time leader in three-point field goals made. And as it currently stands, Celtics are 3 games up in the Atlantic, currently hold the 4th seed, 2 games behind Indiana for that 3rd seed. How important is the seeding for the Celtics this year? We know in years past, they've kind of had that philosophy of just get in, and then from there, whatever happens, happens. As long as you get in, you're there. But this year, is that seeding a little bit more important than in past years?
I think for the first round, yeah. I think I'd like the higher seed so that we have the home court advantage because the Celtics take it easy against easier opponents. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows the Rondo stats on nationalized TV. That's when he gets all his triple-doubles. So against the bigger teams, against the bigger superstars, the Celtics play fine. They'll come and play their best. But I think in like a first-round matchup against an Indiana, Atlanta, or Orlando, wherever they fall, I think home court will definitely help us pick up our game.
I don't think it really matters for the Celtics this year. I mean, the East is going to go through the Heat or the Bulls. Whether you play them in the first round, second round, third, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to beat them. So, if you bounce them in an earlier round, it's probably better you get to play an easier opponent.
Can the Celtics team beat the Bulls? We've seen them twice in the last 2 weeks absolutely dominate the Miami Heat. So I feel as though the chance for us beating the Miami Heat is there. However, on the other hand, the Bulls have beat us twice without star player Derrick Rose. What are your thoughts if the Celtics were to be matched up against the Bulls in a series?
Well, my thought is the Celtics can beat anyone on any given night. It depends on the play of mainly Rondo specifically. Mm-hmm. KG looks like he stepped in a time machine the past couple weeks, so I'm loving the way he's playing. They're picking it up. And I think as long as we get past the first round, like a lower matchup, then we would have no problem facing Miami and Chicago back-to-back because they raise the level play against better opponents.
Okay, interesting.
I think KG's the X factor. If he can play like the KG of old, they can beat anybody. But if he shows up in a wheelchair, then it's going to be tough for them because he is the linchpin in their D. They need him.
Yeah, I think especially against the Bulls, KG and Noah get in each other's head a lot, and that's usually you don't see you don't usually see KG affected by people talking back to him, but I feel like Noah gets under his skin a little bit, so it becomes personal against the Bulls.
Okay, and with any Celtics success has come Rajon Rondo, who is in the midst of an incredible streak, 18 straight games with 10-plus assists, has now surpassed Steve Nash for the league lead in assists per game. And so, with Rondo, it's always kind of a love-hate relationship, as we talked about a little bit last week. And so where does this put him in the pantheon of point guards in the NBA? Sometimes when he's in a hot streak, people always have him top 3 in the league. Then he turns into a little bit of a head case, doesn't always show up, and people bump him down to 6 or 7. So he's kind of always floating around. But with this hot streak going on right now, the way the Celtics team is playing, where do you think at the current moment he stands, Kevin?
I think he is a top 3 point guard. You look at a Steve Nash, maybe a Darren Williams in New Jersey. But he's right up there because of his triple-double ability. Mm-hmm. Nobody rebounds better than him from the point guard position, and that just starts everything for the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Celtics guy, but I don't know if I can put him top 3, especially the way the point guard position's changing. Like with people like Westbrook and Derrick Rose, it's all about scoring. So a pure point guard, he's definitely up there. But top 3 in the league right now, I wouldn't put him there. I'd say Chris Paul, Deron Williams, Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook are all better point guards than Rondo right now.
Okay. And quickly again with the Celtics, what is the most important player to the success of the Celtics? Is it Avery Bradley? Is it Kevin Garnett at center? Or is it Rondo running this team?
I'd say Rondo. Everything goes through him offensively, and even on defense, him poking the ball. Like, he lets his guy go by him sometimes intentionally to poke it out, and that starts a fast break. So I think offensively and even defensively, Rondo's the key.
I think it's Garnett. He's their emotional leader. He gets them going, and they need him to be successful in the playoffs.
Okay, well, with 9 games left in the regular season and a 3-game lead in the Atlantic, it will surely be interesting to see where the Celtics end up and who they will play in the first round of the playoffs. Sticking with the NBA, a topic that I believe I'd like to talk about here on this show is the role of star players in the NBA. Currently, throughout the year, there has been the Dwight Howard saga in Orlando, where it's been, will he go, won't he go, will he sign an extension? Eventually, right before the trade deadline, he decided to sign his option to stay for next year, but now it has come out that Stan Van Gundy believes that Dwight Howard has asked for him to be fired, and since then has ensued many awkward conversations. And so what I want to know is, how powerful are players in the NBA these days? Are they in fact too powerful for the mere fact that they can handicap an entire franchise by their own demands?
I think definitely it's the most superstar-driven league out of any of the professional sports. There's only 5 guys on the court at the time. The best players, the face of the franchise. And we saw it even in Orlando before. We saw it with Shaq. He didn't get along with the management or with the coaching. He said he wanted to trade, and he moved to LA, just a bigger market. Mm-hmm. So they basically, at this point, unfortunately, can control what they want to do. Everyone thought LeBron would want to bring a championship to Cleveland, but it turns out he just would rather go live in Miami and play with his friends. So it's definitely a superstar-driven league, and they get to make, at the end of the day, they get to make whatever decisions they want. They can
Is that something that, as a fan, you like, or is it something as a fan you wish could change?
Well, I wish it could change. It's unfortunate. Everyone likes the player that sticks. Everyone loves Paul Pierce sticking with the Celtics' whole career. Everyone wants their star player to be on their team their whole career. So it's tough that it's come to this, but superstars get to choose their own destiny at this point.
Yeah, this is a huge problem for the NBA. This is the ripple effect from the Allen Iverson me generation. You know, everything's isolation, everything's me, and even with the big 3, I mean, now it's 3 guys saying me. Yeah. So, and they're all ganging up. And David Stern knows this is a big problem. You know, he vetoed the Chris Paul trade to the Lakers. The NBA is going to have some problems if this keeps going on, because you can't just fire coaches because a star player wants it. You can't have a player running your organization.
You mentioned the veto trade from the Lakers for Chris Paul early this year, which affected Lamar Odom, who recently was dropped by the Dallas Mavericks, he would be put to the side and not be used the rest of the season after an argument with Mark Cuban. Now, while Lamar Odom is in ways a star player, he was reigning 6th man of the year, he's not quite the level of LeBron James or Carmelo Anthony, who kind of try and make these big 3 combos, but yet he kind of just checked out for the season because he was unhappy of his situation. Now, we've talked about star players, but what about these 2nd tier and 3rd tier players who might even be able to have the type of power that Lamar Odom did, where he simply just gave up on his team and now will be free to go wherever he wants next season?
Yeah, well, if you're in the NBA, you've been the star of your team all growing up. You're the best player on your team. So even if you're a bench player, people have been treating you as the better player on your team your whole life. So you're used to that type of star treatment. In Lamar's case, they list him as inactive for the rest of the year, where they could have released him. He could have signed someplace else. He asked for out of Los Angeles when he heard trade rumors, and that's what they gave him. They sent him in the best possible situation to the defending basketball champions. So you'd think he'd have a shot, step in, play well, maybe win another championship there in Dallas. And instead, he, like you said, emotionally checked out and gave no effort to the Mavericks all season.
Yeah, you said guys have been the best players growing up, even the secondary guys, and that's a big problem in sports in general, is guys don't know how to check their egos at the door. And Odom wasn't able to do that. He knew he was going into a situation where there was a set lineup. His minutes were going to go down. He could have made the best of it, and instead he sort of just let the situation get the better of him, and he's not going to be playing in the playoffs this year.
Do you guys see this as an example of a situation that might might happen again in later years where, you know, with other second-tier players, that this is going to be something that they look to and say, if Lamar Odom did this, you know, why can't I?
I don't think Lamar Odom will compare to like the Dwight situation. I think Dwight wants to move out because he wants to win and be his own. He doesn't want to be in Orlando anymore. Lamar wanted out because his feelings were hurt. He didn't like the fact that there were rumors of him being traded out of LA. And then he went to Dallas and he wanted to move back and live in Los Angeles again. So I think that's a little bit different than the Dwight situation, but the superstars control the league at this point, so anything could happen going forward.
Yeah, when you look at the second-tier players, they want to play basketball. They don't want to be on the sidelines, and I think this Odom case is a special case. He's not where he wants to be. He wants to be in LA, and the season's almost over, so he can just start gearing up for next year, and hopefully, for his sake, they trade him.
Well, for the NBA, the playoffs are just around the corner, only a few weeks left in the season, and it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top as the eventual NBA champion. And that has brought us to the end of our show, and it is now time for me to magically calculate the numbers in my head and decide upon a winner. And today's winner is, boom goes the dynamite, it's Kevin Moore. Take your rant time.
All right, well, thank you. It's Stanley Cup playoff time. Everybody get cup crazy. For the first time ever, every single NHL playoff game will be nationally in America. It will be on CNBC, NBC Sports Network, NHL Network. So be a couch potato for the next few months and watch the NHL. I'd like to talk a little bit about Big Brother, Big Sister of Hampshire County. If you guys could just go to www.chd.org/BBBS. You guys can find information about it and get involved in the community and help some kids that could really use some buddies.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. And for all you viewers out there, please feel free to tweet us at the show at ATV_Amherst. That's all the time we have for today on the only show that always goes from ashy to classy. This has been Around the Valley. Until next time, I'm Will Weir. Thank you for joining us.